I'm going to be going over is a question I get all the bloody time. So it's about breathing when you're running, when you're doing any sort of conditioning piece, and this can be transitioned to any sort of conditioning workout or event, but you just have to change the timing to whatever sport that you are doing, because I'm going to be giving you a bit of a cadence to go off as well. All right, so breathing. Now, the very first thing that you need to understand is that breathing is not going to fix a shit aerobic system, okay? You need to get out and do frequent aerobic training and build up that aerobic system, because 9 times out of 10, if you're struggling to breathe, it's because your body is struggling to get the oxygen to those working muscles because your aerobic system's shit. That's what it comes down to. So get more frequent with your training. If you're only training a couple of times a week, bump it up that little bit, get a little bit more frequency, do some long stuff, do some short stuff, high intensity stuff, low intensity stuff, a good mix of everything throughout your week. So a really easy way, like if you guys are doing all this on your own, so a really easy structure to plan out a week's worth of running workouts, all right? One of your workouts needs to be a sustained, so a moderately hard, sustained run. So it shouldn't be, you should finish it close to maximum effort, but not quite there yet. So anywhere between 20 and 30 minutes, you want a decent effort run. The middle one, so that's your day one. Day two, so that will be have a rest day. Then day two, you want to do some high intensity intervals. So something very hard, get in there, run fast. You can change the rest periods depending on how intense you want that actual session, but things like going up, doing 400s, 1K repeats, all that type of stuff, just work on the higher intensity type stuff. And then your last day, which will be your long day, which should be steady state. So nice, easy run. You should finish it feeling like you can go longer with your aerobic system anyway. It's just that your muscles may be starting to really fatigue and break down by the end of it. That's why it's good to do your long runs at the end of the week, because they are very taxing on the body. Even if it is just low intensity, you finish a long run and your calves are blown out, you're sore, even though, you haven't really worked that hard. It's just that endurance side of things is what takes the toll on the body. Okay, but what I'm going to be chatting about today is the breathing side of things. So that's just a quick run through of an easy structure of a week's worth of running. So I'm just going to turn it around so you can see, because otherwise it's going to be mirrored and it'll be all backwards. This is my house. All right, let's get into this. So super simple method to break down how you should be breathing. Hopefully you can see me all right. How you should be structuring your breathing patterns throughout different intensities when you're running. And as you can see, there's those 3 intensities that I just spoke about in how a week should be structured out. We've got those 3 intensities as well. So that's how I like to break down intensities when it comes to conditioning. We've got steady state, which is the nice, easy, low intensity type stuff. Like I said, you get to the end of it, your aerobic system still feels pretty good, but you've done long bouts of it. You're sustained, it's that next step up. It's still not max effort, but it is that next step up. And I even like to break that sustained down into moderate sustained and high sustained. So moderate sustained is sort of that in between. It's getting hard. It's harder than the steady state, but it's still pretty easy. So you're just running at a moderate effort, and towards the end, you're still not quite on max effort. Whereas the high sustained, you're pretty much on max effort by the time you finish there. But it's still sustained across the entire workout. Whereas max effort, that is when it comes into high intensity intervals, where you're just going balls to the wall type stuff and going as hard as you can, and you'll be reaching max heart rate or whatever it is that you're going for. Okay, so 3 intensities. And along with that, I've given you a breathing strategy to suit each intensity. So we're breaking it down into gears. So gear 1, gear 2, and gear 3 through those 3 intensities, all depending on which one that you're hitting. Okay, so really simple method. So gear 1, when we're in steady state running, so when we're going off for those nice long easy runs or warm-ups, all that type of stuff, we should be able to breathe in our nose and out our nose. So full nasal breathing in and out. We're not going through our mouth at all. This is a really good method to practice. It will enhance your breathing for when it starts to get harder and harder. and it just improves your ability to breathe, and it's a better path for your oxygen to go down into your actual chest. Even though it doesn't feel like it, you won't get as much volume, but it's a better path, and it filters out all the crap as well as heats up that oxygen as well. So it heats up that air. So especially in winter, I really like breathing as much as I can through my nose, because it heats up the air before it even hits my lungs. If I don't do that, and especially if I'm doing really high intensity stuff, my lungs get absolutely fried really, really early, just because of that cool air hitting my lungs before it's even heated up. Okay, so in gear 1, we're just nasal, breathing in our nose and out of our nose as much as we can. And not only that, but we're going to keep it to a cadence. And this is what I said, it all depends on what sport you are doing. But with running, we want to stick with around about 4 to 6 steps per minute. So for the cadence, it's steps per minute. So how many times your feet are hitting the ground. So with this one, we want to be breathing in through our nose for 4 to 6 steps. I'll usually start out at 6, and then as I get more fatigued and the intensity starts to pick up that little bit more, I'll drop it down to 4 steps, and sometimes in between the both. So you breathe in for 4 to 6 steps through your nose, and out of your nose for 4 to 6 steps. Okay, so that's when we're in gear 1 in the steady state style training. Then we move into gear 2, so we knock it up a gear, and now all of a sudden we're in that sustained intensity. With this sustained intensity, because that intensity is a little bit higher, we need a little bit more volume going in and out of our body. So what we want to change to is we're still breathing in through our nose, but now we're breathing out through our mouth. So we're just getting that carbon dioxide and everything out of our body nice and quickly. But we're still sticking with a cadence. We're not just and then going straight in. We're not like hyperventilating or anything like that. We're sticking with that 4-step cadence. This is just a recommendation. Remember, this is for you as well. So with the cadence, it's really important. If you're not hitting the magical 180 steps per minute that you should be aiming for with your cadence with running to start with, this will be out of whack anyway, because you need to work on your cadence. Okay, so just remember that. If your cadence is out of whack, it's nowhere near that 170 to 190 sort of range, you're not going to be able to do this correctly either. Okay, so we're in second gear now. We've hit that sustain, so it's a little bit harder than that steady state training. And we are breathing in through our nose and breathing out through our mouth. In for 4 steps and out for 4 steps through our mouth. Okay, now we move into an even like the max effort type stuff. So we step it up another gear. We're in third gear now, which is our top gear. And now we don't give a shit. All right, we're breathing in. Once it hits that intensity, do not try to force yourself to breathe through your nose, because it's just going to create a lot of stress on your body. Just allow yourself to breathe in and out of your mouth. You still want to control it in some way or shape or form. You still want to have some sort of control over it by trying to slow it down a little bit, but just allow yourself to sort of go where it needs to go, because you're at max effort. And that's not where we need to worry about our breathing, because we're just going as hard as we can. When we're recovering from that, that is when we start to move back and we try to knock it back down the gears. Okay, so with the cadence side of things, when we're in max effort, it all depends on what you are doing. So if you're doing like a max effort 5K, you could probably still stick to, maybe 4-step cadence or something like that. But if you're doing like 100 meter, like a 200, 1K sprint, then your cadence is going to be a lot higher. So you're most probably not going to be anywhere near that. Okay guys, so that's a very simple method. 3 gears to go through as you go through the different intensities. Right, we've got different ways we are breathing through our nose or through our mouth, and we've got the different cadence to keep that rhythm. It's really important to work with that rhythm, and you'll feel your body just to start to get into it and get into a bit of a flow with it as well. With your breathing, your heart rate will come down, and so on and so on. Okay, just a couple of extra little pointers here with this strategy, this method as well. Right, you're going to have transition periods. So we're not just going to go from that to that to that, all right? There's going to be transition periods in between, right? When we're in steady, and we're just working that a little bit higher, like we may be at the top end of steady, sort of going into sustained intensity. So we're just in between first and second gear here. All right, we may not just be all through our nose. We may not be all through our nose and out through our mouth. We may be a mixture in between. So what I like to do is find patterns that work in between those intensities. As an example, if I'm running at a steady, but it's just that little bit too high for me to be holding just nasal breathing, then what I'll do is I'll breathe in and out of my nose for maybe 3 cycles, and then I'll have one big breath out of my mouth. So we're only moving into this second gear here. So we're still not breathing in through our mouth because we're not at that intensity yet. We're just breathing out through our mouth, okay? So we've got that transition period where we can just go through a bit of a pattern, you know, so a breath in through our nose, out through our nose, cycle that twice, then we'll go in through our nose and out through our mouth. Cycle through that again. And the higher in intensity it gets, the less cycles we're going to do in and out of our nose, and the more that breathing out of our mouth is going to start coming into it. So that's in between the steady and the sustained. And then we've got exactly the same thing between the sustained and the maximum. Okay, we're not going to go straight from sustained straight into a maximum, like complete mouth breathing. All right, we're not just going to click straight into third gear. There's that transition period there. We need to rev out this second gear here. And to do that, again, we just go through a bit of a pattern. So now in that sustained, we're breathing in through our nose and out through our mouth, right? That may be a little bit too hard to stick with because we're really picking up the intensity. We're sort of in that sort of transition period there. So now what we need to do is just in through our nose, out through our mouth for a couple of cycles, then take a big one through our mouth, out through our mouth, go back through that same cycle again, okay? So we sort of in this gear, we take a breath in here, then we go back, but make it patterns. Don't just randomly do it, make it patterns, and you'll find the higher the intensity goes, the more you're sort of transitioning into here. So you may start out of 3 cycles of this, and then you'll do 1 cycle completely through your mouth. Back to 3 cycles, the intensity starts to pick up again. Now we're only doing 2 cycles of that, and now we're hitting that. Then we go 1 cycle of that, 1 of that, and then we fully click into that third gear there. Okay? Second point with this is to allow changes, all right? Don't think it's just a fixed thing. You're not just going to be in steady state the entire time unless you're on like a treadmill with nothing else. You're not changing the speeds. You know you can do that speed. There's nothing, you know, that's going to change your intensity. When you're out running, there's wind, you got to do crossings across roads, you've got to go around corners, you've got to go up hills, all this type of stuff. So allow changes throughout. Don't just expect to stick to one thing. So you may click up a couple of gears, allow that. But once you get past that, then that's when you try to recover and you bring yourself back down those gears to whatever sort of intensity that you should be hitting for that training session. As an example, if we hit a hill, like we're going for a steady run, we hit a hill, we're predominantly breathing in and out through our nose, and then we hit that hill, we're like, shit, that's too much. Now we're just going to allow ourselves to breathe in and out of our mouth, or maybe just that second gear here, in through our nose and out through our mouth. Whatever you hit, allow yourself to do it. Once you get to the top of the hill, that's when you're going to click back down the gears. We're going to try to reduce back down to that first gear of just nasal breathing. It's a really, really good method to a really good skill to learn to be able to recover as you're still moving as well. And by thinking about this in different gears and different types of breathing, it allows you actual things to be aiming for when you're doing that. So when you get up over that hill, okay, now I need to concentrate, allow myself to recover, reduce that stress, bring that breathing back as close to that nasal breathing as possible, because we're aiming for that steady state, that gear 1 sort of training there. Okay, another time when recovery comes into play a lot is when we're in max effort as well. So if we're just going for a 5K max effort, that's when we finish and we're trying to control ourselves as much as possible, get a hold of that breathing. Let's knock it back down into second gear, get a hold of it a little bit better, knock it back down into first gear. Same sort of thing with intervals. The quicker you can recover and drop that heart rate and just, reduce that stress in between bouts, in between intervals, the better you're going to go each time. So the better you go each time, the more results you're going to get from it as well. So not just, finish an interval and just like, oh shit, I'm so hard. That was so hard, and not even concentrate on your recovery at all. Go through, put yourself in a recovery position, hands on your thighs, open up that diaphragm, and try to bring yourself down as quick as you can. If you're using a heart rate monitor, you watch how quick that comes down, and when you start concentrating on that stuff, it really, really makes a difference. And then going into the next one, you're a hell of a lot fresher than if you didn't concentrate on it at all. Alright guys, that is it. That is the 3-gear method for breathing when it comes to running, but it can be transitioned across to any sort of2conditioning thing that you're doing. And you just need to, if you are doing something else, even cycling, rowing, whatever it is, there's still a rhythm to it. There's still a cadence. It's just that it won't be the same as running it. Like when you're cycling, it'll be RPM, so the revolutions per minute. You sort of get into a rhythm with your breathing. With rowing, it's going to be strokes per minute. Whatever it is that you're doing, you can still transition that across to whatever that you're doing. All right, guys, like I said, I can't see the comments. I need to sort that shit out, but I can't at the moment, so I'm going to jump on afterwards. I've got a little bit of time, so if you've got any questions at all in regards to that, make sure you leave them in the comments section and I'll answer it for you. But hopefully this helps you out. Like I said, breathing is not going to fix your shitty aerobic system, right? So you need to get out and you need to train and expose yourself to to that sort of training, and it has to be specific to what you're doing as well. So really good swimmers can be shit runners, all right? So you need to get out and do that sport that you're actually trying to improve. So get out and train it, but also implement this stuff to enhance those results when it comes to your training. And getting a hold of this nice and early will make a difference later down the track, rather than having no focus on it whatsoever, getting really fit and then realizing, shit, I have no control over my breathing, and then you start to sort of enhance it later on. Get onto it now and you'll get more results out of it. Catch you all later.